Hey everybody, Jake here from Bearded Gear, and it's time for my full review on this beauty. This is the Holt Haptic, and this is my first knife that I have spent four figures on. I spent exactly $1,000 on this knife, and that has been an interesting thing. It felt special sending that much money for a knife. It was weird, and it was like breaking through something here. Maybe this is the start of a whole different part of collecting for me. I don't think it actually will be, but it was different to buy a knife this much. And then if you've been following along, after the unboxing, when I did my first impressions video, it was also a disassembly and a bearing swap, and it was an opportunity for this knife to stop really, frankly, having a problem that it was having. And when I got this knife, it had had a couple owners before me, all of whom I know and are all cool, nice guys. But at some point along the way, it had been disassembled. And frankly, if any of them are watching this, don't take this personally. I'm not mad at anybody. But it was disassembled improperly. It was taken apart the wrong way, and put together the wrong way. To be fair, from Holt, I've now come to understand that they tell people that when you're disassembling this knife, you should not even touch this side. Like, this pivot screw should just stay in, and everything in there should stay together. And if you need to take apart the knife, you take out this pivot screw and these body screws, and you take the knife apart from that way, right? Now, the way that I know this was taken apart incorrectly, I say incorrectly because Holt there's nothing in the paperwork that says like, hey, if you're going to take this apart, do it this way. I haven't seen any like big press release to all the owners of these, or like, I don't know how they would accomplish that at this point, but it doesn't seem to be like truly common knowledge. I've just been being told that by other people who seem to have been told that like kind of straight from the mouth of the Holts. Anyway, when I got this knife, this pivot screw, the one that you're not supposed to touch, now that I know that, was walking constantly. It would come loose after 2 flicks every time, and the blade was wobbling inside of the scales, and there was blade play, and it was not right. So I took it apart from that side because this side wasn't moving, and other people had told me, like, I think Left EDC had been one of the ones who had talked to them when he was disassembling his, and they had told him, like, hey, one side should stay put, the other side shouldn't move. And I never thought to check which side that was. I just knew one side was already moving. So I was like, oh, apparently that's the side that moves. Turns out I took apart the knife backwards, the way you're not supposed to, because that's the side that was walking out completely. Now, when I had it disassembled, I realized that there was lube inside the pivot threads, and that's what was causing the problems. Even though I'd been putting in blue Loctite and I'd done it twice up to that point, the Loctite wasn't setting at all because it couldn't. There was lube in there. So after getting the lube cleared out, re-Loctiting it, I did the day after that disassembly, I did pull the show side pivot out. I guess each pivot one, I don't remember now. I think this pivot stayed, and I pulled the show side out. I got it right where I wanted it. I made sure it was dry in there first. I got it right where I wanted it with some Loctite, and then I let it sit for 24 hours. So this knife has done way too much sitting since it's gotten here because I keep giving Loctite time to dry on it. But now, finally, with the Gillian salt and pepper bearings in here, with the pivot sorted out, this knife is flawless. A lot of people have been asking me, like, hey, is it better now? And yes, it is taken care of. So now I haven't had any issues with either side of the pivot wandering. I haven't had any looseness problems. The blade isn't moving inside of the scales. There's no rattle or wobble or anything. Everything is as it should be, which is a huge relief because, bear in mind, this was the first time I spent this much money on a knife, and to have it be that kind of experience was a little bit of a bummer. It's not fun, where it's like, I wanted it to just be perfect. And to be fair, I bought it on the secondary. I don't think any of that was Holt's fault in the way that they sent the knife out. I think it just had been taken apart and put back together and wasn't quite right on the reassembly. And some lube had gotten into places where it wasn't supposed to be in, and that's what caused the problems. So Anyway, it's sorted out now. So the big question, and I'll probably try to answer this by the end of the review, is whether, to me, I think this is worth me having $1,000 knife in my collection. Like, is it worth it to me to keep this and not move it on to somebody else? Because it's the most expensive knife in my collection at that point, and I'll have to love it so much to keep it around at that much money. So let's talk Ergos, carry, cutting, action, and all that stuff, and then we'll probably get into the weeds a little bit. But first, let's talk Ergos. So on this knife, you can see it's a fairly neutral handle shape other than this one kind of primary groove right here. Luckily, for my hands, this groove is the perfect size. I love this finger groove because it makes the whole knife just kind of fall into place in hand, and then you've got this kind of neutral just swell that tapers a little bit back here. We've got all this milling on the scales, which provides a decent texture without even really feeling like texture. It feels kind of like, I don't know, it's like a fingerprint on a fingerprint. It's not like rough at all. It grips pretty well. I believe this is what they call the sea breeze texture or milling pattern on here. This anodizing, by the way, is 82 volt. People always ask because it's this crazy like blurply color, and some light it looks blue, some light it looks purple. I feel like more often than not it looks purple, but anyway, the ergos on this knife are bananas good for me. It's so good. There's a little bit of jimping up here. I can reach up past it or land on it. The jimping isn't too aggressive at all. It's actually really good, nice tight, kind of subtle jimping. Just very comfortable. Hammer grip, saber grip, you name it. Very comfortable like that. Reverse grip, super comfortable. I like that. Reverse grip draw cut is okay. I haven't ever used this knife in that grip yet, but maybe one day. Forward grip draw cut is actually very comfortable. I like that. So ergonomically, huge win for this knife. It is up there ergonomically with just about anything in my collection. It's very, very comfortable to hold on to and to use, frankly. So ergos are a win for me. I wear medium-sized gloves, but I fill them out real well. So just so you know, your hands may be bigger or smaller than mine, so everyone's hands are different, but ergos are a win. Next, let's talk carry. This knife isn't crazy thick, but it's not crazy thin either. It's just kind of, I don't know, it feels average in thickness to me. Super average. Anyway, it in pocket is very comfortable because the whole thing feels like a little bit rounded. It's pretty smooth. It is milled out internally for some weight relief, so it's not super heavy, although it doesn't feel light either, which kind of makes it feel more expensive to me a little bit. I think if this knife was lighter, it might feel a little bit like cheaper, maybe? I don't know. That's a weird thing where, like, the human brain, at least for me, kind of sometimes, like, if something doesn't weigh enough, it feels cheap. Even sometimes, though, it's very expensive to make things really lightweight. But anyway, the weight feels good. So in pocket, you don't have a deep carry clip, which is one thing that I wish it had. I wish every knife had a deep carry clip, but you don't really expect it on a knife like this. You're going to find a milled titanium clip. So on here, it carries pretty decent. You only have about that much of the knife sticking out of your pocket, which isn't so bad, and it looks kind of cool and pretty, so it is what it is. The clip itself has good retention. It goes in and out of pocket smoothly, but it holds it there, and I don't have any issues with the clip itself, especially because it also didn't even come up in ergos. I frankly can't even really feel that this clip is there ergonomically. It just feels like more scale, and there's no hot spot on it or anything like that. So nice comfortable clip, carries well. It's this is a knife that frankly fits for me as either a secondary or a primary. I have carried it as a secondary just a couple of times, as a primary more often, mostly because it's so ridiculously nice and expensive that my front right pocket is easier for me to keep track of what's there. My left pocket, if I'm getting it out of the car, I'll be sitting on it in places and stuff, it's just less safe back there. But this has been a size that is comfortable in either. And when I've carried it back left pocket, it's been comfortable. Front right pocket, it's comfortable as well. So either way there. All right, let's talk action. So on Holt knives, they have the Spectre and now this. One of the things that they're known for, in my opinion, is how drop shutty they are. And literally, if you just get your finger out of the way, it will free fall. And right now I have it set up with no play. There's 0 blade play right now, and it's dropping, just like it should. On deployment, it's flipper only. I do prefer multiple deployment methods, or my favorite would be a hole like a middle finger flick with. But as flipper only knives go, this is way too fun. The detent is just perfect, and it's an adjustable detent. So I guess if I didn't love it, I could adjust it, but I love it. There's no way I'm touching this detent. It's just excellent. Got my thumb in the way there. I touched the flipper tab. Oh, there we go. So yeah, it free falls, it rockets out, it makes nice sounds. The action is what I would expect at this caliber, I guess. And another thing, I just finished my review of the Grimsmo Norseman. This one does not bounce out when it closes. It stays closed. I like that. Really, this detent is just excellent. And I think part of the beauty of it as well is that this is actually a liner lock and not a frame lock. So honestly, at this point, I genuinely think I kind of prefer liner locks to frame locks a lot of the time. There are some frame locks that I absolutely love. That's not like a hard and fast rule. I'm not like getting rid of all the frame locks. But liner locks are just so much more convenient because you don't have to worry at all about finger placement. There's no lock bar to be pressing on. Everything is kind of internally housed, and it just keeps everything so much more comfortable. And then ergonomically, you're not fighting with a lock bar over here where you're grabbing onto the knife. It feels really nice to me. And as liner locks go, this is certainly the nicest one I've ever felt, for sure, hands down. So that leaves our last category then, is cutting performance. This knife is a dream to cut with, frankly. I haven't hard used this knife in the sense that I've like batoned with it or done anything crazy. I don't think I've even put it through any zip ties. Maybe 1 or 2. If I did, I'm not even remembering it. But I have done a lot of just opening boxes, opening internal packaging, and processing some cardboard for the dumpster with it. For me, if a knife is going to stick around, I have to be willing to use it for at least that kind of stuff. And this one does really, really well for it. This blade features a hollow grind. It's an M390, which is a steel that is excellent. M390 is very good. It's nice and thin down behind the edge. The hollow grind is done well. It's not such a deep hollow that it gets crazy thick super fast either. I mean, it thickens up to a pretty decent blade stock, but it's not overly thick for no reason. And it just feels the right kind of balance between robust and I'm not afraid to do a little bit of work with it, and also being nice and slicey. It's also a Wharncliffe or a sheep's foot, whatever you want to call it, which I like because for things like opening packages, I find it's the most convenient blade shape to use because the tip is down here, and I think it looks great. I think it functions great. I love it. One of the reasons why I was really excited about the Haptic when it came out is because the Spectre never really spoke to me from Holt. I just aesthetically, it wasn't really my jam to look at. It's kind of like Shirogorov knives aren't really that aesthetically pleasing to me. They just look, I don't know, they don't excite me all that much. I'll probably be trying one soon because I need to. But this profile and blade shape and handle shape and the way it all comes together, this aesthetically excites me. And I think this blade is a big part of that. I think if this had the same shape of blade as the Spectre, it was just like a littler Spectre, I wouldn't be excited about it like I am about this. So yeah, cutting performance is good. I like to cut with this knife. I think it's accentuated by how good the Ergos are too. The way this knife feels in a saber grip, which is the most common grip for me to use while cutting things, is just, it's really, really good. So yeah, Ergos are great. Carry is great. Cutting is great. Action is great. Across the board, this knife is great. So the real question is, do I personally feel like, with my own money having been spent on it, is it worth keeping this knife around? And I've been torn on this because for me, the way that I collect knives, or the way that I collect it, I guess is the best term for it. I sell knives all the time to buy new things. I don't cycle a ton of new money into buying knives. I mostly sell things I already have to fund new things that I don't have yet. And don't get me wrong, sometimes I do put new money in the hobby. It's not like that never happens. But most of the time, if I want to buy something, that means I also have to sell something. And to buy this meant I had to sell a few somethings because it was so expensive, right? And I don't regret doing that. I'm happy to have this knife. But the question is, like, is it worth it for me to keep it? Now that I've experienced it, now that I've carried it, now that I've had one for myself, that I've been able to, like, I paid for this is mine, I can do whatever I want with it. Now that I've experienced it like that, is it worth it to keep it forever and keep enjoying it? Will I get enough enjoyment out of it? Or do I turn it back into $1,000 that I can buy other knives with, or whatever else I want with? Like, there's a lot of stuff you could buy for $1,000. And I think for the moment, at least for, like, I don't know the future, at least another week even, I don't want to let this go yet. I'm not ready to say, like, yep, I'm going to let it go. Because I'm thoroughly enjoying it. Every time that this is in my pocket, it feels special. It makes my day a little bit better when I'm carrying this, because it feels super nice and it feels like I've treated myself to it. And it also feels in some strange way kind of like I've made it to a certain level. Maybe that's weirdly egotistical or something. I don't know, but I'm just being honest. It feels really kind of cool to me that I've gotten to the point where I bought myself $1,000 knife. And when I cut things with it, it's like, I don't know, it makes me happy. I enjoy it enough that for right now, I don't plan on just immediately letting this go now that I've finished the review. Maybe something really shiny will come along and I'll look at my collection and I'll be like, man, in order to get that, the thing that makes the most sense to get rid of is this, and then maybe I cross that bridge when I get to it. Or maybe I just get an itch. That happens too. But for now, I don't plan on letting it go. I really genuinely like this knife. And it's crazy too, because I'm not into purple at all. At all. On knives. But on this one, it seems to work for me. It seems to not bother me at all. I kind of like it some of the time. It never really bugs me. My daughter loves it. When I showed it to her, she's like, oh, you need to call that one flashing purple. And it's just like, I don't know, I've gotten used to it, and I don't mind it at all that it's the purple one. If I were to order one of these for myself, like if I got a spot on a lotto or whatever, and it's like, you can pick which color you want, this would never have been the color that I would have picked. And if I was to pick again, I wouldn't pick this color again. But it's like, it's cool that this is the one that I have for some reason. Anyway, I guess that's kind of it. I love this knife. It is really, truly nice. They're very expensive. They're very hard to get. So it's difficult for me to I recommend you go get one of these. But if this is the kind of thing you're looking for, if this is the type of market that you're in, then yeah, I think it's a fantastic knife. I think it's really, really good. And to me, it's worth it so far. I don't feel bad for spending what I spent on it. It feels that nice, which is impressive, because a lot of knives, oftentimes, I don't feel justify their price tag. Anyway, thanks for checking it out with me, guys. This has been the Holt Haptic. It's my full review, and we'll see you on the next one.